So, in honor of Pride Week, or Pride Month, I have come across several different talks and social media posts from transgender people who have provided information about their experiences getting a consult from doctors and other healthcare professionals to determine whether or not they are well enough to get the surgery.
Right.
I don't know I need to have a look and find the exact TikTok because I saved it a long time ago. But some of the questions were very specific in terms of how someone relates to their gender. To the point where I doubt those are questions that cis people think about.
Absolutely. This is actually a big topic with several of my clients that we've explored because they've, identified as cis their whole life, and I'm like, okay, why? What makes you, what makes you a woman, or what makes you a man, or whatever their assignment was, and sometimes they have no idea. And it's a huge disservice when we go down the checkbox of what's available and we stop on the first option.
Right. Like, I choose default.
Yeah. And it is also, those people don't experience the invasiveness that many trans people do because their options are always available on forms and such.
And in terms of invasiveness, whenever there is a departure from dominant culture, there's always, almost always, at least with me as a 90s kid, there was intense questioning as to, well, why are you deferring to a different, to something different? There must be something wrong. You must be seeking attention. You must be mentally ill, because no one who is in their right mind would stray from conformity.
Yeah, I think it's this just huge problem that society has created, where we've essentially created a supposed one-size-fits-all blueprint, a cookie cutter. This is what your humanness is supposed to look like, and that means that you completely resonate with the body that you were born in, and what society places upon that body. And because that's the thing, like, there are absolutely trans and non-binary people that never get surgery or take hormones. They're fine with their body. It's just that their gender or expression is different than what society places on that.
And you using the term resonate makes me think about the fact that there are probably people who are out there who are cis and don't resonate necessarily.
Yeah.
But it's something where it just is. Like, it's just not a thing you question. So if you've questioned it, that means whatever thing that you have decided on next that's not the default, you must resonate with this really intensely in order for it to be correctly your identity. And that causes a lot of stress in the LGBTQIA community, because there are so many times that I'll look at a non-binary group where there will be posts of being like, do I pass enough? Am I...
Right, do I pass as non-binary enough? Like, what?
Yeah. Am I non-binary enough? Am I too old to be non-binary? Like, there have been some really beautiful stories of people older than 40 and 50, 60 even, posting on Facebook being like, it's been so long before I found a a community that understands what I've been going through from all of my life. But since I am so old now and I never had the word for it, like, I feel like an imposter. So.
Right. And how many cis people do we see running around asking, you know, am I feminine enough? Am I masculine enough? Like, they don't verbally ask it. They may be wondering it.
Yeah.
Of course, because society has this idea, this super coded, again, like your assignment at birth, you should look like this. You should act like this. And yeah, that's why I like the idea of resonance, because I've worked with a lot of AFAB people that when we talk about feminine expression, what we traditionally think of as feminine expression, you know, maybe it's floral print and makeup and long hair and, you know, delicate movement or whatever in there. And I have lots of cis women that are like, ew, no.
I'm like the clunkiest AFAB.
But, well, and then there's me, right? Like, I identify as a femme to an agender on a spectrum, but my expression tends to be more femme, and I don't have to question if I'm feminine enough.
I just don't resonate.
Yeah, you don't resonate with...
Don't perceive me. Just don't. I'm not resonating with anything. I am a void. I am but the...
You are the endless sky.
The endless sky. I am the white noise.
But, you know, this is this illusion of there being only one right way to be human. And that, well, two right ways to be human. You're either a male human or a female human. And
those were direct images from God.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway.
Which means God was both.
Well, it's really interesting, and I could go off on a theological conversation here, but in certain interpretations of the Bible, Adam was both Adam and Eve, and Adam was the body and Eve was the soul that inhabited the body.
That's awesome. I mean, the people have also interpreted God as the masculine and the Holy Spirit as the feminine. Right. And then Jesus as, I don't know.
So owning things, ownership. Ownership, we think, means control. And, like, being in control of something. If we own it, we must be in control of it. Instead of it being, you know, something that's lovingly embraced. And we can tell that we're out of balance with our relationship and ownership of our identities, which includes our gender, if we're experiencing anxiety and stress and illness and chronic pain and, like, things like that can be related to our self-view.
Yeah.
And how we're relating to the world and trying to fit in with other people's versions of that. And society has these ideas of, you know, one size fits all bodies, achievement being the thing that you have to strive for, life scripting. So literally that idea, like, you must grow up as your assigned gender, find somebody to date of the opposite gender, date them, get engaged, get married, get a house, white picket fence, 2.5 kids, dog or cat.
I always love the 2.5 kids. Like, you're just, once you hit the 2 kids, you're just gonna be halfway pregnant for the rest of your life.
But, like, it's a rat race. And when we try to buy into that game, and we don't ask ourselves the questions of, like, what makes me me, right? We automatically go with societal scripting, and that causes all of these, you know, issues.
I was like, what analogy could I make in terms of, like how life is a game? Like, is life like this one video game where everyone claims that you're a cheater if you have mods. Because Lord knows you've had a ton of games that you immediately put on a polyamorous mod.
Oh, heck. Yep. Oh man, now I want to go play My Time at Portia and marry all the husbandos and waifus again.
The husbandos.
Me husbandos.
Amazing. But yeah, so it's like society handed you a video game and it is ableist, so like only one type of controller. Like let's say like you are better built for PC controls and they hand you an Xbox controller or a Switch controller or something.
And then I automatically fail the game.
Right, exactly. And they're like, oh, but you're just not, like, you just need to try harder, or you know. And that's the sort of thing that society does on so many other levels. And even the aspects of society that are like, hey, okay, non-binary people can exist, but what non-binary looks like is androgynous.
It's an AFAB person with top surgery and short hair and an undercut and mask fashion.
Yep.
That is a non-binary person by societal standards.
Yep.
And that is the only acceptable they, them.
Yep. And if people enjoy, like, I feel bad for trans men because there are some trans men out there that are like, I'm so good at passing now. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm so good at passing, but, like, how do I don't want to scare people either. Like, I don't want to scare the LGBTQ community. I want to show them that I am a trans man. Like, I belong in the community sort of thing. And that's always, like, really shitty that, like, people who have embraced who they are, like, have gone into this journey of embracing their gender as being a man, and they've done all of the work to become exactly who they're proud to be, but now they are in an identity that people will flag as a threat.
Yeah. And
it sucks because it's like that flagged as a threat in the community that they are safe in, right, versus like trans women are flagged as a threat all the time in dominant culture.
Right.
To the point where many of them are unfortunately murdered, many of them every year.
Yeah. And assaulted and all kinds of terrible things. And this whole concept of passing, like, passing is based off the societal script of what gender is supposed to look like.
Yep.
You know,
and if you don't pass, or if you aren't following the script, then you must be some level of queer. Like, there are people out there that I know who are not queer, like they're allies, but they also express themselves more fluidly. Mm-hmm. And because that's just who they are, which is great. But then they're flagged as being queer.
And then treated poorly because of the whole, like, other. You know what I'm going to say?
What are you going to say?
The illusion of separation. Othering. That's the whole problem here. Like, we don't question how we, quote unquote, deviate from the typical life script if we all would agree with some of the aspects of the life script, because it's just easier. It's just easier to, quote unquote, pass. It's easier to, you know, if you're bisexual, it is certainly easier to date the opposite gender or the opposite looking gender by societal standards so that people don't threaten you, mm-hmm. right? But that's not authentic, and no one should have to do that.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's also a huge disservice to cis people, to hetero people who never have the opportunity to actually figure out that is who they are. Mm-hmm. They just blindly accepted it. It's really empowering. I don't know if it's a huge scene, but in a novel that I wrote, my very, I would say, femme main character, there's a whole portion where she questions her gender, and because she's AFAB and ends up agreeing that she's a cis female, but she questions that because she questions the way that she looks at femininity and what that means to her, and has to navigate her own relationship with that.
But why does someone, like, was she questioning how she defined femininity in comparison to how society defined femininity? Because that's the thing that I usually find people questioning their identities around. Because they'll be like, oh, I feel pretty confident in this until I start comparing my definition to how other people have defined it.
Yeah, and that's part of the question, is like she's looking at the femininity around her, and hers is alike some of the other females of her culture. I'm not using the word woman here because they're aliens. But their society in general is, they're polyamory accepting, and queer accepting. It's actually more common to be bisexual than gay in their culture, or straight. Mm-hmm. And yeah, gender isn't really a thing that they bring up. So she brings it up with herself as she's exploring her identity. It's like a question that I think all of us should explore. Like, how do I like to express myself? How do I perceive my physical body, and what feels good in my skin? You know, how do I like my hair? What colors make me feel powerful? And those shouldn't be tied into gender. Mm-hmm. And yet society does.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, you were saying something about, what is it called? Othering, separation.
The illusion of separation.
The illusion of separation. Because I'm wondering if we separate and compare I wonder if it's a part of our human nature brain holes that haven't evolved out of us. That's like lizard brain, Neanderthal, protective piece.
Sure. I'm sure that it is. I think I was actually talking to Justin about this other day, the whole concept that, like, babies don't really do the whole racism thing.
Yeah.
But then by the time they're toddlers, they often do. Because at that point they've received cultural conditioning. It's been able to be that sort of biological generational trauma gets switched on.
Yeah.
And I was talking about it because I was acknowledging, I work with several Black clients, and I love working with them. And I think that part of the reason that I've been able to be successful in working with them is because I own my history of racism and how that's shown up in my life. It shows up in every single person's life.
Right.
As a elementary school student, I befriended the only Black girl in school when she started up. I think we were in first grade, and it was an all-white school, and suddenly a African-American family moved in, and I had never been exposed to racism by my family yet. Mm-hmm. So I befriended her because she had no friends, and that's what I did. And then in middle school, I had a crush on a Black boy. And then in high school, I had, friends of all colors and national origins, and like all kinds of like exchange students, and people that had moved with their families, and people that just had been here for generations, but their family had come from somewhere else, and then people who were completely native and of all different colors, like just a ton of friends. And then I moved to Tennessee when I was 18. And somehow the conversation came up around the dinner table, and I mentioned, being on the bus in middle school with this boy named Edwin, and somehow it came up that he was Black. I don't remember how. But the whole family, because this was with my, at the time, in-laws, my whole family looked at me, including my husband at the time, like I had just dropped an F-bomb in front of grandma or something. Mm-hmm. Like I had just said something completely terrible. And that was my introduction to like full-blown racism.
Right.
And even though I was 20 or 18 to 20 at the time that I was being exposed to that, that was enough to flip on the biological generational trauma. Mm-hmm. And have me start questioning things like, am I supposed to act a certain way? Like, am I supposed to fear this? So I had to really question it. Question racial relationships in a way that, unfortunately, a lot of white people don't when it comes to racism and things like that. And it's the same thing with gender, because it's not a thing we talk about. We shove it down. We shame it. We say, you know, you're this and don't think otherwise.
Yeah, we just assume the conformity. Like, I remember just assuming that was what I was going to be. Like, I was going to be a girl, more of a tomboyish girl, but a girl nonetheless, who felt kind of awkward wearing dresses, but still a girl. Who was awkwardly taller than most of the boys, which made dating really hard. But, you know, boys were cool. Like, I liked hanging out with them.
Boys were cool.
I mean, yeah.
Heck dang, what a glowing recommendation.
Yes. Well, I wanted to play more with the boys than the girls because they actually were playing things that I enjoyed. But yeah, so I just assumed that would be what I would become. And I wasn't exposed to a lot of homosexuality.
You weren't exposed to any other options on the checklist?
Nope. It was just, well, any of the other options weren't even on the checklist. It was on like a blacklist.
Right.
Like, it was like, oh, well, there could be these other options, but you're going to burn in hell for choosing that.
Don't pick the ones in this folder over here. Yes, they're options, but they are forbidden options.
Yeah.
They don't go along with the life script.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, again, it's like mods. Like, here are mods that are going to cause a virus on your computer and crash it forever. But instead, that's just, you know, that's just the story.
That's just the story, yeah.
They'll tell you.
Not everybody likes the vanilla game.
Nope, indeed. They like the kinky game.
They like the modded game. There's the vanilla game and then the modded game.
Is vanilla the term?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just was like...
Sometimes people use that, yeah.
Gotcha. I learn new terms from Safriana all the time regarding either...
Or maybe I just say that.
Or regarding euphemisms or things that are not euphemisms. Mostly things that are euphemisms that I don't realize are euphemisms in the time being.
Oh, I will never get over the meme you sent in the wholesome memes. And I was like...
That's not wholesome at all.
That is not... wholesome. Why did you think that was wholesome?
I was like, it's like, you know,
it's just a cute candy meme. No. It is in fact a reference to some dark sex stuff. But anyway. Sweet innocent babe.
Oh man. But yeah, so when I opened that folder and realized that there were so many more options before. And the thing is it's kind of like the forbidden thing that you...
The forbidden fruit.
The forbidden fruit. There we go. We can just link it all back to stories from Christianity.
We can. Yeah.
We can.
We can indeed. Because that's our history.
Well, it is. And like the forbidden fruit caused a lot of guilt and is what causes us to feel like we are meant for damnation forever.
The forbidden checkbox.
The forbidden checkbox of queer,
of gender and sexual orientation, and yeah, but like everybody needs to. This whole grooming thing, you know, you referenced that in the prior episode.
Yeah.
But you know, I see this in our current culture with sex ed. Oh my God, the big battles about sex ed right now, and like. You can't let the kids know that gay is an option or they'll all be gay.
You can't have books where there are queer characters in a public library that kids can go find.
Because they'll know that checkbox exists.
Yeah. Like, they need to just not be aware of that and only have heterosexual love interest concepts.
And the fucked up thing, of course, is...
That's technically grooming. like technically dominant culture is grooming.
Is grooming, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure there are people that don't want to hear that, but that's part of what it is.
It is. If you say, again, there's this only this option and I'm going to steer you heavily in this direction and not let you figure it out yourself and not let you consent to your own life. But even if we don't know that the checkboxes are an option, we still feel like ourselves in our core deep down. And if that is not the first checkbox, if it's not the available one, we are going to think there is something inherently wrong with us.
Yep. If there's only one checkbox and there's nothing else there's nothing to go outside of the box, you just think that you're broken because you don't fit in that box, but there's no other box to check.
Right.
And so that can be really disorienting for people and be like, well, I guess I'm just this broken version of what, dominant culture says I need to be.
And that can come in so many different forms, like compulsory sexuality. Like, regardless of your sexual orientation, you must be sexual.
Mm-hmm. I had this thing where I thought that in order to say this was even a thing, like I didn't really know what the word crush meant, apparently, according to dominant culture. Apparently, according to dominant culture, or at least what people taught me when I was in middle school and high school, was that if you have a crush on someone, you want to have sex with them. If you want to have sex with them, that means you are fantasizing about both of you being naked together in bed. That was what I thought it meant. Mm-hmm. So if I was like, oh, I really like this person, does this mean I have a crush on them? Let me see. So I'd like, right before I'd go to bed, I'd like force myself to try to envision like what they could look like naked. And see if I didn't have a gag reflex, which is a problem in itself. The fact that I would just be like, can I tolerate the fact that they're naked? Does that mean I have a crush on them?
And that came from your programming, your cultural conditioning, and what you were taught by family members and such.
Yeah.
So it's, again, that whole one size fits all. Like, it does not.
Yeah.
It never does.
Yeah. And when, like, my first boyfriend, like, lovingly grabbed my butt while we were attempting to kiss, I had a panic attack and then was like, oh, maybe I'm just asexual. Because for me, like, asexual was not homosexual.
Right. And just not wanting to have sex with a man but be with a man was still a better option than not being with a man.
Yeah.
By societal standards.
By societal standards, yeah.
And don't even get me... So then we get into, like, the whole questioning about gender and the things that cis people and het people often don't ask. There are a lot of people that are ace in cis-het relationships and feel wrong and like something is off with their relationship because they don't want to have sex with their partner. They only want to have sex with their partner once in a blue moon.
Yeah. And I know that you go through phases sometimes, and there was like a bigger phase at one point where like you even got a book that we like listened to together about being ace, and you went through this whole big like you were legitimately like so worried about it and what that would mean for our relationship, and due to the stigma of ace people. Yeah.
And so ace flux people exist like me, where we exist on fluid spectrums. And even, the whole Kinsey scale and whatnot, like gender and gender expression are so fluid.
Yeah. And
yet society, like if you see somebody who appears to be a AFAB woman, and she is wearing a button-up shirt, that's okay. I'm saying that's okay from society's perspective here. But if you see a MAB person who, he's wearing a floral print blouse and pants, there's something wrong with him.
Yeah, and the blouse is very, like, you can tell that it's not... Because there are a lot of button-up shirts now that have floral prints on them. But it's...
a lacy, sort of soft, feminine cut with a low V-neck or something like that. Yeah, like, society would be like, oh, no, that's not okay.
Right.
So femininity is still seen as lesser than.
Especially if the man is not white
right,
or fit.
Yes.
So that's also a thing
and,
that society pushes.
Bless all of our people that are breaking free from that. All of these celebrities that are finally pushing towards more fluid expressions to show you do you, boo, right? Like what you like. My darling boyfriend wears solid colored t-shirts like all the time, and I don't know how he stands that. I could not wear solid colored t-shirts all the time. But I've worn t-shirts before. I've tried them on, you know, and they're, for me, occasionally casually around the house, but that's not my expression. But I tried it and it's not for me. Like, we need to have more of an approach like that with clothing and expression and even our conceptualizations of gender. You really like your bow ties, and I tried that for a while and it wasn't for me. Like,
there are some cute pictures of you in bow ties, but I knew that you weren't really feeling it.
I feel it once in a rare
Very
occasion.
rare time, yeah.
Again, because gender and expression are fluid. But yeah, we need to ask critical questions about gender, and not just to our people that are breaking out of the script or norm.
Yeah, and when going to Pride in DC, I just loved seeing people showing expression in really interesting ways. And I was like, this is queer joy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wish that this sort of joy and expression existed all of the time.
Right.
I wish that there was a way that we could do business casual that looks like this sort of thing. Like, I know that there's obviously, like, quote unquote, like, you know, let's not go completely shirtless with pasties.
Booty shorts and pasties.
Booty shorts and pasties while teaching a kindergarten class, but, like, have more of your style in your wardrobe, and be unashamed.
Yep.
Living unashamed and normalizing authenticity. Blah, 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 blah.